Hello everyone, I am Ben Contreras, and welcome back to another episode of Ben Talks About. We're getting very close to the new year, and quite frankly, I am indeed ready to be done with this year, 2020. And I'm pretty sure lots of people are pretty much done with this year as well. So I wanted to take this time to talk about a series that I've been meaning to talk about for quite a while now. I've been planning this video where I talk about this series for quite a while at this point, ever since I actually first watched it. And that is with the not necessarily recent, but recent-esque anime series titled Rise of the Shield Hero. This series is a anime that was released quite a while ago and is based on a series of light novels of the same name. And recently they actually announced that season 2 was just on the way, and I figured since I was able to watch the entirety of the first season, I decided to why not make a video on this series. And I have quite a bit to say about my overall opinions on this show. So, to give a bit of a synopsis on what the series is about, the series is in the category of shows that people have labeled an isekai, where the main character is teleported to another realm. Usually it's some sort of a fantasy realm, whether it be inside of a video game or something akin to that. And that's exactly what happens to our main character here, who is named Naofumi, who gets teleported to this fantasy realm where he, alongside three other characters, who all apparently come from alternate universes of Japan, which is kind of I thought it was kind of an odd choice when I first saw it. But these four characters are the supposed chosen heroes of this world, and each wield weapons that are unique to them, and our titular character Naofumi is given the shield as his weapon, which is considered in this society to be the weakest out of the four. Now, the series starts off very, a sort of basic, I could sort of say. During the first few minutes of the first episode, you have all four of the main characters, they're all doing their thing, but of course, this series apparently decided to make it their goal to make the main character pretty much give the most negativity to the main character as possible, because he gets framed for a crime that he didn't do, and this basically completely sends him all the way down to rock bottom, and now he has to start from scratch, which is a pretty interesting concept, for these kind of series. You don't see that many isekais where the main character pretty much gets their butt kicked from minute one. But at the same time, it also makes the series very hard for me to watch, because I am not a fan of I guess you could say, the misunderstanding kind of plotline at all, where the main character is framed for something they clearly did not do, and the audience clearly knows that they didn't do it, and basically the entire concept of the show is exactly that, and that actually really frustrated me at first, but eventually I decided to just roll with it and figure, okay, if this is going to happen to the main character, then at the very least I have a person who's actually a likable protagonist, which our main character Naofumi eventually becomes. At the end of the first episode and at the beginning of the second episode, he sort of becomes a bit of a sort of bitter-esque character. I mean, which, does indeed make sense, because of the fact that, the entire society basically doesn't respect him at all. And I guess his actions are semi-understandable given the situation he's in, but it doesn't exactly do a fantastic job at making him necessarily likable. That is, until he eventually comes across his ally character, who was a former slave girl named Raftalia, who their relationship between each other is actually a very good, I thought was actually one of the best parts of the series. The two main characters play off each other very nicely, and these situations where they're in, excuse me, the situations they get in each episode, they indeed, they were able to make the characters, like, once they both appeared with each other, that's where Naofumi became a bit more of a likable character. And, I mean, he was sympathetic from the first episode, I feel, because, the entire situation he was in, but they do indeed do a good job at making their relationship very good. Alongside the, some of the other, like, side characters that they meet along their journey and all of that. Characters that don't immediately disregard him because he's the shield hero. those characters I felt were really nice, and I wouldn't have minded if the entire series was based on just these side characters. And that's one of the things that I did like about the series. And another thing that I liked about it is that they made the world as it is rather interesting, especially compared to some other isekai related series, because they do a tendency on making on making this other world a bit more of a lot more of a, I guess you could say, a sort of a more colorful kind of fantasy world that's a bit more, I guess you could say, supernatural. I'm not quite sure if that's the right word, but I feel like this one is a bit more, it feels like a more realistic style fantasy kind of world, while still having the presence of it being like an isekai series. Similar to other series like Log Horizon or other shows of that nature, which have more of a, I don't really want to say gritty, but it doesn't have as much of a, it doesn't look as vibrant. It's more like reality based, if I'm saying that correctly, while at the same time still being a fantasy realm. I thought the entire world and its inhabitants were rather interesting. Now, the main thing that I did that made the series very hard for me to finish all the way through are the majority of the other side characters, and those being primarily the three other main heroes, which I didn't even bother to remember their names because I just didn't enjoy them, because the entire concept of the series is that the shield hero is looked down upon right off the bat for God knows what reason, and he gets immediately framed, and the three other heroes are just quick to blindly agree with these people who, as far as we're concerned, they're each complete strangers to each other. So what exactly motivates them to really trust these people? If anything, they should end up trusting Naofumi more, because what sort of evidence do they have? They basically have none. They're kind of just doing it. They're basically almost like going.
We are so sorry for these technical difficulties. Please stand by.
They're basically just going through the motions, and it feels like none of the other side characters take the time to think about the situation that they're in. They're very quick to act, I feel. And I feel like if at least one of the other characters took the time to actually think about the situation that they were in, at some point they could somewhat sympathize with Naofumi and sort of try and find a way to see if it was actually right for them to actually blame him for the crime that he didn't do, which eventually does happen later on in the series, but the main characters don't exactly bring up have a good first impression on you. And I feel like that was sort of the entire point, to make the other characters as unlikable as you really can, so that you sort of sympathize with Naofumi. But to me, it just made the series more frustrating to watch, because the entire time you're just you're yelling at these people that the all the other inhabitants of this new world are completely wrong, and they're not exactly doing anything to really do anything about it. Especially with the likes of the spear hero. He is, in my opinion, the worst character in the entire series, because he's the stereotypical like hot-headed character who is constantly like flirting with all the female characters and thinking to himself like he's above everybody else because he's one of the chosen heroes. At least the other two are what possible to look at, because they're not as like overly exaggerated as the spear hero. And anytime where the spear hero gets what's coming to him, those are honestly my favorite parts of the show, because he gets what he rightfully deserves. But one thing that I do hope for the second season when it comes out is that it does a better job at making these characters a more better relationship with each other, because the end of the series does sort of imply that they're all on semi-equal grounds, but not exactly equal grounds, because they still aren't exactly fond of Naofumi. But I do hope that by the end of the series, the characters are all on good terms with each other, and they're able to, of course, do more things to help expand the world that they didn't do in the first season. Even though the world itself is already rather interesting in terms of like what it does to sort of like distinct itself from other isekai series that may have very similar like concepts in it. So that's just what I'm hoping for the second season. I could go ahead and just read the light novels because they're basically going to have the exact same story as the anime. But I would like to see what the anime does to, I guess you could say, sort of wrap things up. I'm pretty sure this series is not likely to end after just 2 seasons. I feel like there's enough room for the story to possibly have a third, but I do hope that the second season is a bit more easier for me to watch and get a grasp on than when I first saw the first episode of the first season. So, and hopefully they don't mention anything involving mind control, because the amount of times they try to make an excuse of how Naofumi is able to do something because of this mind control magic that he apparently has, they just overly overuse that concept way too many times, and I just hope that it never gets mentioned at all during the second season. But overall, I still had, despite my ramblings, I still had quite a bit of fun watching the series. As one of the first isekai that I've like watched and really tried to get into, aside from stuff like Log Horizon and the first half of Sao. I do I did actually really enjoy the series, and I'm hoping that other isekais that have already come out like in more recent years are able to do stuff that's very similar to it, but at the same time making themselves like unique to one another. So yeah, until the second season eventually comes out, we aren't exactly sure how the series is going to improve. But once it eventually does, and I eventually watch it, I will more than likely make another episode talking about it and how I feel it is compared to the second season. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed me talking about this series. It's a video that I've been a video that I've been wanting to make for quite a while now, and I figured that before the end of the disaster year that is 2020, I just go ahead and get it out of the way. And what good timing too, considering we're already at the beginning of December. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed the video, and until I see you all next time, I am Ben Contreras, and bye.